I'm trying to think of a mummy pun, and I can't come up with any good ones. That's it. That's my intro. Hey, I'm Amanda, you're watching Swell Entertainment, and today we are talking about Unwrap My Heart by Alex Falcone and Ezra Fox. Why? Because of TikTok. Why else? I was tagged in the original video from Alex about 14 times. I was going to exaggerate the number, and then I'm like, no, I really shouldn't. I still think 14 is a lot. But a lot of you on TikTok have been tagging me in videos that you think I'd be interested in, or videos that you're like, oh, here's this, whatever. And this was one of them that I was tagged in, and this is a pretty good find. Basically, Alex originally posted this video to his TikTok sometime in February, and I believe it has since been taken down, but I downloaded it prior to that. So the question he's answering in the TikTok is, what's a time that you took a joke too far?
This is how far my friends and I are willing to take a joke. Remember a few years ago, after Twilight came out and was such a huge hit, that all these other writers figured out that the formula was just teenage girl meets a monster, but she doesn't know that he's a monster because he's so sexy, and they just started cranking them out. Friends and I would see one, we'd be like, man, they're going to run out of monsters at some point, and it's going to be time for mummies. There's going to be no other options left besides mummies. They're going to have to write a book about a teenage girl who meets a mummy, but then no one did.
The theme of today is YA paranormal romance / supernatural romance. Hence why I am wearing plaid. Okay. The text is going to tell you that I'm wearing plaid because I'm not like other girls. And I don't actually care about how I look at school because it's not cool to care about things. The reader will substitute that to mean that I am secretly into women, and that will fuel fan fiction for the rest of time for my book, which I think is the goal. I think that should always be the goal. I don't think the protagonist, Sophia, in this book, Princess Sophia, we have a lot to talk about, wears plaid in this, but whenever I think of like, you're not like other girls, I'm just thinking of like, she's wearing like a button up. You got teen girl and vampire, teen girl and demon, teen girl and fae, teen girl and werewolves, teen girl and what's another one? Necromancers. I read that in school. No one ever made a mummy romance. So they took upon themselves to write Unwrap My Heart. I also kept calling this Unbound Love for some reason when I was reading it. I don't know why. It's full of mummy puns. I bought the book for Kindle, and I was unable to get past chapter 4 for some reason. I mean, it's not particularly well written, but I mean, they themselves said that they both him and his buddy put a combined total of maybe a couple of days between them into this book. Fair, wonderful. That's more than most people do, and you still were able to make a full book. Good for you. But it was a little painful, and I'm in a reading slump right now, so unless it's like, I don't know, people are naked, I don't know. It's going to take me a minute to get through it. So shout out to Audible because I was able to find an audiobook of this book, and I was able to listen to it and get the story while I was multitasking because I am secretly an iPad baby. You know what? I'm going to shout her out. She deserves it. I'm going to shout out the voice actor who did this. Let's see. This was narrated by Sarah Hathaway. She did a very good voice for Seth. Seth is our love interest, the super hunky mummy who leaves a trail of dust everywhere he goes and probably smells putrid. She did like a dusty, sandy voice for him, like ragged, which you know it would be. It was great. So shout out to Audible and shout out to Sarah for making sure I was able to make this video. I read the full book, listened to the full book, but I consumed the book. How about that? We have our main character, Sophia, who goes by Princess Sophia, and everyone calls her Princess. Why? They tell us, and I don't even fully understand. Mainly because Princess Sophia is like a running joke between her dad, her best friend Duncan, who is described as a big, meaty, bulky teddy bear that lifts and maybe on steroids. He is part of the love triangle, but it's not even really a love triangle because Sophia's never actually into him. She is a junior in high school. She doesn't date. She's never dated. She's not like other girls, but she's also obsessed with like Ancestry.com and tracing family trees. She has the only one friend, Duncan, who she's known since she was little, that she does not realize he is completely in love with her the entire book. Her mom left one day, just left, So we've got the abandoned parent trope, and her dad is a local weatherman who does things like goes and predicts the forecast at like a used car lot. Does not have any problems with her like just leaving to go to Egypt at one point. He keeps burning food. We are introduced to Seth, who is the new kid who is a mummy, but he is described as a hipster. He is covered in bandages, head to toe. But they also know that he is just like hollows for eyes. There's one point where she's like admiring his eye sockets and she sees that she realizes that he's looking at her. And so she's just like, no, I am a puppy. I can look everywhere else but at him because I'm just excited to look at everything but the hunky new kid. The sexy new kid. She specifically calls him sexy the entire time. The new kid leaves and there's like a pile of dust left behind him. He leaves dust everywhere. It's not like it's sand, like he is decaying. That's his decaying skin and bones, whatever's left of his intestines from the mummy itself. Like that's what that is. Everywhere. Anyway, she goes to class. Duncan doesn't have class with her. It's like the one class they don't have together, because of course. And the new kid, Seth, is paired with her because she didn't have a partner, and they are going to be working on a new project together because she didn't do her old essay because she got sidetracked with Ancestry.com, and they're going to do a project on Egypt together. So they start talking back and forth. She just keeps commenting in her brain and her inner monologue about how sexy he is. She makes a comment about sphinxes because they're talking about Egypt. And he gets like really upset and like leaves, and she thinks she said something racist. Goes home because she's like devastated that she's ruined her chance with the super sexy new kid. I should also point out this fact about Duncan because I think it's very funny. So we can have a full discussion on the current state of archaeology / past archaeology or just archaeology in general, and the ramifications of taking things from their resting places and or taking them from their home countries and bringing them to various more wealthy museums in other countries to be paid to gawk at, while the actual cultures that these artifacts belong in do not have access to these artifacts and things like that. We can have a whole discussion for that. I just don't think that this video about a mummy love story is the video for that. That's why I'm not going to address that part in this. But Duncan, the best friend, who's the one side of the love angle, because it's technically not a love triangle because she's never actually interested in him whatsoever, and there has to be at least some attraction for there to actually be a love triangle. Duncan, who's in love with her, is described as an amateur archaeologist, like goes on digs and stuff. There's a camping trip that's about to happen that she's not going to go on, but he's going on because it's a potential archaeology dig. And it's kind of funny because later on, some of the villains in this, the goons, not the villain, but like the villain's goons, are referred to as grave robbers. And if you're an amateur archaeologist, I'm pretty certain you're just a grave robber. I think that's what that is. I don't think you could just be like, oh, I'm an archaeologist and then go on digs. I don't think you can do that. Am I wrong? Again, we can have a whole discussion about the ethics of modern archaeology in general. We can totally have that discussion. But like, I think in the context, I don't think you're an amateur archaeologist. He invites her on this camping trip, and though she's not like other girls, she really doesn't like camping because she doesn't care about anything. She's home with her dad, and then she gets a knock on the door, and Seth's just there. He somehow knew where she lived. He comes over to work on the project and is just like, yeah, no, I'm from Egypt, and like I lost my family, and like is giving the full backstory. Again, the fact that he's just leaving dust everywhere, doesn't drink liquids, doesn't really eat anything. That's not raising any red flags whatsoever. And then she's working on the project with him. They like kiss then, I believe. He just like kisses her. She's like, you know what? I have to do a lot of this project this weekend. I'm just going to tell Duncan I can't go on the trip. Duncan is understandably devastated that the new kid is stealing his girl, even though it's not his girl. Seth leaves at some point and then like never actually got his phone number. He just showed up at her house. And so she has no way of like getting in contact with him. And he like never comes back. So she has to do the project by herself. And then he's just gone. She does the presentation by herself, but like he gave notes or something. I don't know. She's not mad at him for abandoning her on the project for some reason. But Duncan comes back, is talking about how excited he is about the dig. Seth comes back. They have another conversation about how he's going to have to leave again, but then he's not going to have to leave again. But that's like a whole thing. Like, you just go around kissing people. No, I only kiss you. She still is not getting the fact that he is a, mummy. They like kiss a little bit more. And then Seth leaves again and is promising that when he comes back, he doesn't have to leave ever again. While he's gone, Duncan and Sophia go mini golfing. They have like an Egyptian themed, pharaoh themed golf course in this little town in California. As they're playing, Duncan tries to tell Sophia that he has feelings for her, but she is so inept that she thinks he is declaring his love of steroids. And that she knows she still cares about him. And that, I thought you stopped, but that's okay. Like, you know you're perfect just the way you are. I know you have body image issues, but like you don't, and you must be so, oh my God, you must be so upset because Seth is so effortlessly sexy and like you have to do steroids. Like, do you think that he does steroids? Probably not. I'm sorry you feel like you love steroids. I'm really sorry. Anyway, Duncan then gets beamed in the back of the head with like a club. And that's where we meet the two grave digging goons and they call her Princess. They don't call her Sophia. They say, Princess, you have something of ours. You got to come with us, okay? I left this out in the moment, but like a horde of cats come, like feral cats come and like attack the goons and protect Sophia and Duncan, who is still unconscious. And then Seth pops up. Duncan comes to and is like, it looks like the mummy from the seventh hole. Hey, hitting me over the head is a weird way to try and win at mini golf. So before she can take him to the hospital, they finish doing mini golf. She still is not getting it. He's still trying to tell her, like, what do you think I am? Tell me. And she just keeps saying that he's a hipster. Just keeps not getting it. So they play the game. They take Duncan to the hospital. And then she's talking with him again. And she goes home, starts Googling about various things, and then starts Googling about mummies. And then that's where she kind of is like, you're a mummy. And then so he is like, yes, I'm a mummy. They start talking about the age thing. Like, you're like thousands of years old. And he's like, I'm not that old. Like I died when I was like 16 and then I was preserved and I only came to like 2 years ago. So really, if anything, I'm 18, maybe. If I was thousands of years old and I'd been walking this earth for thousands of years, that would be really weird and a really odd, dangerous relationship for us to be in for you because you're like 17, And then he's just like, I'm a mummy. I died and I'm cursed to walk the earth now. I was reanimated. She just starts asking about, wait, are vampires real? Are werewolves real? He's getting agitated, like, no, only related to mummies. There's no other supernatural creatures. It's only, we have like priests that are like probably in charge of things, but like it's only related to mummies and maybe Bigfoot. Really? No, not really. But you know what? In Sophia's defense, if I found out that my boyfriend was like secretly a supernatural paranormal being, I too would transform into a high school fuckboy and we are now playing 20 questions. I would want to know things. She has also been thinking about sex with him because obviously all these books have at least some form of undercurrent of sex in them, or at least, oh yes, we are together now. I find you sexy. So eventually we must bone, that's. So she starts thinking about the logistics of her having sex with her mummy boyfriend. Like, well, I kiss him and that's fine. And then she's like, I totally don't think about you naked. And he's like, you're thinking about me naked. It's this whole back and forth. Again, he is a decaying corpse under his wrappings. He talks with the dad. And she's like, do you want to like stay for dinner? I know you can't eat anything, but like, do you want to stay? Because again, he's like avoiding moisture. Crusty. He's like, you know what? How about you have dinner with your dad and then I'll snake back in later and we don't even have to pretend to like watch TV with your dad or like talk or whatever. Like we can fool around basically is what it's saying. And then she's like, yeah, okay. Goes on. They start talking about the princess comment and how apparently her mom ran away because she was always looking over her shoulder like her past was going to catch up to her, and how she looks through her genealogy again and finds that like all of the family only ever had like daughters, like one daughter in particular on her mom's side. And that must mean something. There's talk about how she might have been great descendant of an Egyptian princess. Like there's that. The next chapter goes, it's like, I would love to tell you that this is the sex chapter. But Seth never came back that weekend and he never texted me. And so there's this whole exchange where she's like, here's what may have happened. And it's basically describing how the grave robbers abducted Seth and how they went about doing that. Then she's like, or he just realized that I'm super uncool and my mummy boyfriend doesn't want to have sex with me and he broke up with me. Basically being ghosted, but she takes it as like, oh, he's breaking up with her, even though she knows the grave robbers are after him. And she just she's just like, no, he just doesn't want to sleep with me. He assumes that it's because he thinks that she's disgusting. And so she's like, fine, I'm going to prove him right. So she wears like the same sweatpants for like a week and like eats a bunch of crap. I don't know why he would think she is disgusting. Again, he's a literal rotting corpse. At one point, she started going to a self-defense class, and that's how we get the female interaction, because otherwise there would be very little female interaction in this book. There is a ancient Egyptian bird that shows up at one point. So an African sacred ibis. An African sacred ibis shows up, okay, with like a note or something talking about how Seth has been kidnapped. To help him, she needs to go to this hotel because there's someone at the hotel who can help Sophia. Duncan and her go to this hotel after they have like the whole discussion about how Duncan actually likes her. She's like, I really don't feel the same way. She's like, you don't love me. Like, stop saying you love me. You don't love me. And he's like, hey, it's fine if you don't feel the same way, but don't like say I'm not feeling how I'm feeling. And then she's like, I don't feel the same way. And he's like, no, why? But Duncan agrees to go with her to this hotel with the bird. And everyone knows about the African sacred ibis, but Sophia, everyone's like, they like frogs. Do you have frogs? Like, and this bird is like annoyed at her, but they call the bird Coo. They go to the hotel and they use the bird as like a diversion to get the woman away from the desk so they can check the room numbers, like looking for the room number that this woman is in. And she sees her mother's name. The mom that walked out on them is in town in a shitty motel. Anyway, they show in, she's like, Princess Sophia? Like, your mom? Why does everyone call her Princess Sophia? That's so stupid. Anyways, Duncan is like moved on from Sophia because he starts flirting with the clerk. Her name is Nicole. Then go on to learn that Sophia and her mother are descendants from Anuket, the great Egyptian river goddess. They're not princesses. They are just extremely, extremely, extremely demigoddesses to the point that they're basically just human. The priest and the grave robbers that abducted Seth are after them. They're not actually after Seth. They're after them, and specifically this river stone thing that can be used to like fix things and like potentially raise the dead. Sorry, not the river stone, the river jewel. My mistake. Basically, she like tries to toss the jewel to Sophia, the mom does, and it shatters and breaks a mirror. And then she's like, oh no, it's fine. And like hums a tune. And then it comes back together. And then she does it again and it fixes it. So it can like fix things, which is how it can fix the dead. I think. So they're talking about the river jewel. That's right, Mom said. I knew they'd come eventually. That's why I took it and went into hiding. There are terrible people who could use its power for their own gain, I'm sure. No, honey. I mean real assholes, okay? He calls himself the priest because he thinks he's so cool, though his name is Harold. I thought if you were looking for me and the jewel, he'd never come for you, but obviously I was wrong. Where does Seth fit into all this? Let's say he's related to Harold. Duncan, shut up. I knew it! Because he just hates Seth. Calm down, Duncan. I don't mean he's an asshole. Seth is one of the sweetest people ever. Basically, Seth worked for the priest or was brought to life by the priest. That's why Seth was reanimated 2 years ago. Seth was sent to find the mom, found the mom, actually liked the mom, or was going to check on Sophia and like fell for Sophia. And so now he's a good guy. And he's been abducted by the priest to like try and get him back into like falling into line, because we find out later that for some reason, because he was one of the first mummies that the priest raised, that he still has free will because something went wrong. And so of course he's the chosen one of the raised mummies, basically. Something about you changed his mind. Kill me. He vowed never to help the priest again. He was horny, so he vowed never to help the priest again. Harold and the mom worked together at some point, or we're like, there was something that happened. We're not getting the full story from the mom, basically, is what's happening. But she tells us that Harold put a spell on her, which is basically a magical restraining order, so she can't get within 100 miles of him. They are going to go to Alexandria, and the mom can't go to rescue Seth, okay? So it's just going to be Duncan and Sophia. She pulls out an identical looking river jewel and puts it on herself and gives the other one to Sophia. She's like, it's a duplicate. They'll think that I have the real one, and hopefully it'll distract them from you because they'll still be after the jewel. If they have you but not the jewel, then that kind of buys time. I don't fully know. But yeah, the priest wants to build an army of undead to overthrow the world, as one does. Yeah, the dad is, doesn't care that she's going to Alexandria. They use the dig money from one of Duncan's upcoming digs for his amateur archaeology. Side note, apparently Duncan, I totally glossed over this. He has the largest privately owned collection of dong artifacts, phalluses specifically, but dong artifacts. Like, he just collects dongs, and it was partially a joke because he found it on a dig site, and then a bunch of archaeologists on a message board thought it was funny that he was like squeamish about finding a dick. And so they sent him castings and such of various dicks that they had found. And so now it's an ongoing joke, and he just collects phalluses. So he's an amateur archaeologist who collects dicks. Land, get off the plane, and are immediately kidnapped. Like, immediately knocked out. She comes to, and the priest is like monologuing. And we find out that it wasn't that he was hunting her, the mother. The mother was like a research assistant for Harold, okay? And he was looking for Anuket's descendants, and so he had like a whole spell done to like draw them into him. And so he was like, yeah, it just kind of worked out. So I started working with her, and then she fell in love with me and became obsessive. And so I put the restraining order because she was crazy. And, I just can't have that. And so this way, you won't become obsessed with me, but I'm going to turn you into a mummy. I'm going to mummify you, and you're going to join my undead army. Mainly, I'm going to, drain your blood so I have the blood of Anuket so I can continue to raise my army. Priest and the goons have her. They have Duncan. They have Seth. They have the river jewel. Everything is screwed. Everyone is screwed. She refers to herself as the Amazon of evil ingredients because she just delivered herself and the jewel to him. So the way that he has been able to raise the dead for these last years is because the mom was in love with him. And so when she was like his research assistant and in love with him because of the spell and all of that, he was able to easily convince her to like donate blood. So that's what he's been using for the last couple of years to raise the dead. So yeah, now he's basically over the mom because, he's pissed that Seth fell for Sophia. And so he's like, your blood's fine. That'll work. You're younger. It'll probably work better. There's this whole thing where Seth comes back in. She admits she's in love with him because he said, I love you in a note. And she was like, he probably doesn't mean that because we barely know each other. I don't love him. I just like him. And then she's like, no, I love him. I know that now. It's because I've been kidnapped that suddenly I realized the extent of my true feelings for my mummy boyfriend, who I just keep thinking about naked, even though it would be really gross. He comes in and she falls asleep, and she has like this full nightmare that I was like, oh, this could work. This would be a good ending, where she imagines that while she was unconscious, her mom showed up with the river jewel because she gave her daughter the fake one. And then Seth and Duncan worked together, and they just defeated everyone. And Sophia was just out of the way unconscious. And it's like, oh, it worked better because you weren't helping. And that's like a whole nightmare for her. Koo shows up because he flew over himself, and they have this whole thing where they just need to get themselves untied. Duncan's still kind of unconscious. They were able to use the river jewel, even though it's like on the other side of the room, to like close the schism, the magical restraining order. So the mom just shows up, even though it took them forever to get to Alexandria. But we later find out that the river jewel just like teleported her, because apparently it can do that as well. They were able to get untied and escape. And then they're like talking, and we're able to defeat everyone. And then suddenly there's a flood, floods everyone in. So the army of the undead, the mummies, there's a mummy that walks in, and it's like, he was just as sexy and mysterious as Seth, but I didn't like him right away. Because he's like it's basically Duncan mummified, essentially, is the way I was picturing it. And so she's like, he doesn't look like a starving e-boy. No, I'm not into that. I don't like him. He looks mean. Like a flood comes in and all the mummies start getting washed away because they have to avoid moisture because it'll like damage them. And so Seth is like basically being brushed away, but she's able to haul him up his sack of bones. And it's like not an issue later, but the priest washes away. They find the empty robes, but he is just gone. So we have a cliffhanger. Is the priest dead? Is he alive? is the river jewels were apparently both real. The fake one was not actually fake. There just happens to be two. Convenient. Then we get a little bit of a time skip. They're on a camping trip. Duncan is with Nicole, which is the receptionist at the motel. Seth and Sophia are now officially dating, and it's all good. And they just have like a little camping moment, and then that's the end of the book, essentially. Of all the indignities I'd suffered in my life, probably the greatest one was having to go back to school after saving the world. She got a bunch of concussions when she was held hostage. She's fine, but she's now going to a therapist and lying to the therapist, obviously, because, hey, I have a mummy boyfriend. I don't think would go over well with a therapist. I'm going to ask my therapist about that. Hey, if I showed up and just said, hey, I'm dating a mummy, what would you do? I think she'll get a kick out of that. She keeps having a dream where like the priest and her mom are resurrecting a body, and then she realizes it's her body and Seth is there and he's naked, and there's also an octopus, and it's like some really weird sex dream, okay, because she's trying to decide how she's going to, you know, be with Seth. Like, she going to try and make him human? Is she going to make herself a mummy because she just loves him so much that she just has to be with him? You know, I get that the river jewel can, like, you know, close magical schisms, can raise the dead. You've got two people who have the blood of a Nuket with the river jewels, two of them. Is it that far of a leap to try and, hey, this is fiction. Can't we just bring Seth back to life and he's just like a modern teenager now with like a full body and everything? Can we do that? Oh yeah, the dream also tells her that the priest is in Petra and that she has to go to Petra. And so like her and Seth are in the tent and they're like talking. And she's like, we have to go to Petra because that's where the priest is. And they're like, okay, we'll go to Petra, but like after this weekend because like I'm enjoying camping with you. I kiss him passionately, then hold his face in my hands and stare deeply into his eye voids. I love you, Seth. I love you, Princess Sophia. Then he wipes his mouth with his sleeve so my saliva doesn't ruin centuries of careful preservation. The end. This is high art. So Alex made follow-up videos because a lot of people were talking about it.
So the other day I made a video for you guys about this book that my friend and I wrote as a joke like 6 years ago. Unwrapped My Heart, which is a mummy joke. Publishers Weekly called it unfortunate. When Ezra and I put literally days each into writing this book, we did not expect this kind of reaction. People asked, what are your sales like? And I just want to say we went from nothing to something, which is exponential growth, I think. I'm not a math person. Currently in the 200-something best-selling book on Amazon, which is a totally big website. My parents have heard of it. Number 7 best-selling book in satire, which means that I can actually put on my resume now best-selling author in some categories. You know how 50 Shades of Grey was originally Twilight /fic? So we were going to write our own erotic fan fiction of our book and then try to sell that, and then but change the names and make it its own category. We were working on a treatment for a book that would be called Hardcore Bandage, because he's a mummy.
He posted how they have discussion questions for the book. So I figured we should, you know, talk about some of these discussion questions. Feel free to answer them yourself in my comment section because I think that's fun. That's what these discussion groups are for, aren't they? Anyways, 1, what is your favorite typo and why? I don't really have one because, like I said, I listened to this on audiobook. 2, if you were in love with a mummy, would you prefer to turn yourself into a mummy, turn them into a human, keep the weird power dynamic as is, or do an ironic swap-a-doodle a la Gift of the Magi? I don't know if there's a power dynamic here, especially if they were quite literally dead. And we find out from Seth that it's not even like he's been living in the underworld for thousands of years. No, he does not remember anything. Like, as far as he knows, like 2 weeks prior to being reanimated, he died and that's all he remembers. Like, that's it. Technically, the power dynamic isn't really there other than like, I have more power because I can like punch you in the stomach and I won't turn to dust when I do so, you know? So, I mean, I have the power in this power dynamic, which I don't really think people talk about for like the paranormal monster romance. Obviously, I'd want them to be human because I really don't want to be a mummy. That just sounds like it would suck. At the very least, I'd have to, you know, have my heart put into a jar, and that just kind of sounds like it sucks. Fuck, someone's being murdered upstairs. 3, what would be the most difficult part of dating a slowly decaying human corpse with feelings? Considering I value hygiene, basic hygiene in any gender, the smell would definitely do it for me. I'd just be like, I don't. I'm sorry. It's not you, it's me, you know? What would you like to see happen in the sequel, but as specific as possible? Then when you've got an outline for the rest of the series, please send it to us along with the treatment, sample chapter, and anything else you think would help us sell the book to a publisher. You know how in the movies, like I'm thinking specifically High School Musical. Okay, remember how Sharpay is like good at the end of the movie? And then the next movie, she's like kind of a bitch again and the mean girl and like still after Troy. I think we need to have that with Duncan in this, but he's not after her. Okay, he's not after Sophia. He has this Dawn collection. He's into dudes. He realizes he's into Seth, and now the triangle is Seth is the point of the triangle, and Sophia and Duncan are both after Seth. I think that'd be fun. Or we have the love triangle be the dad and the mom, and then the priest, because clearly the mom was at least at one point in love with the priest. So we have that. I think that could be, we could have a, like a little, would it be a star if there was two love triangles going on? How would that work? Yes. We can do that. Would the love triangle have been better or worse if it was a real triangle, i.e. all 3 points were trying to date both other points? I don't know, if that would make it better or worse, frankly. It is our theory that any bad book is only one change away from being great. What's the one change you would make to make this an actual masterpiece? E.g., it takes place in Jurassic Park, or the dad speaks in iambic pentameter, or the final act wasn't so short. I don't remember what I thought would make this better. I had an answer. It was so good. I'm sure I'll remember it later, but at this point in time, I cannot remember it. Do you think other monsters exist in this universe? This is the only question on here with a right and wrong answer, because we were very clear. If we're listening to the words in the book, the answer is no. There are no other supernatural monster, paranormal creatures in this world, because they're only the ones that exist are the ones related to mummies in ancient Egypt. But then also I think there are potentially a lot more not mummy related that are related to ancient Egypt from myth and lore that could be real. So I know the answer is technically no, but I'm calling bullshit. Which of your friends would most like this book? I think they would have an intervention if I sent this to any of them. And they would just be like, is this for a video? Do you need my answer for a video? And even then, they would still probably stop talking to me. Those are the questions on the Unwrap My Heart discussion questions. If you do choose to read this book for a book club, please let me know. I keep joking that I'm eventually going to start a Swell book club because I think that would be fun. But I do think it would be super chaotic if we only read chaotic books. And I do think that would be fun. Who knows if that will ever happen. But all in all, I do think this is fun. I do like when jokes are taken too far. And the fact that you actually took a joke and turned it into a legitimate book that you are now making money off of is very funny to me, because that's more than most people do with their writing in general. So the fact that you're doing that, hilarious. I do hope you make a sequel. I don't know how I would make it better. I think you need more of the bird, because he's fun. Maybe just have him suddenly start talking for no reason. Like he napped on the River Jewel one time and now he talks. I don't know. Anyway, how would you make Unwrap Your Heart sequel? How would you do that? Have you read Unwrap My Heart? Have you heard of Unwrap My Heart? What's the weirdest teen girl, sexy monster, paranormal entity, novel, published YA book that you've read? Let me know. Comment down below. Reminder, I have a podcast, the Swell Shenanigans Podcast. New episodes every Wednesday. Reminder, I have merch like this mug back here. Shout out to my Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd also like to support me on Patreon, that'll be listed down below. If you'd like to follow me on my social media, that'll be up here. And that's going to be it. Have a lovely day. Goodbye. But if I was a super sexy monster entity, what would I be? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you, Audrey, Allen, Cameron, Christopher, Chris, Cody, Colton, Crash PC, China, Devin, Dirty One, Dawn, Elliot, Evan, Beckles, Hopeless, Hollowed, Incognito, Jacka Ray, Joe, John M, Jordan, Joseph, Kenny, Kevin, Kim, Kristen, Lamb, Lex, Lisa, Luis, Matt, Matt O, Matthew S, Meme Lord, Michael, Michael J, Micah, Nathan, Nathaniel, Pat, Penn, Richard, Rob, Rudd, Robert, Ross, Sam, Serena, Skylar, Simon, Tasha, Timothy, Tom, Wendy, William, Winter, Zendries, Wink.